Cooler! I'm Tristan Linville, joined by my co-host Michael Callahan, episode 6 of Water Cooler Talks on Manufacturing and Technology. Michael, what's up, man?
What's going on? You know, it's going to be really bad if you ever lose your voice because I cannot top that. That is just so good. What a way to start off the day.
You know, my mama said that I got a face for radio.
I love it. There we go.
Just the two of us today, man.
Yeah, you know, we've had some fun guests.
We have.
Sandra and Megan were rock stars. They really put us to shame, but at least someone can bring us up a little bit, right?
I mean, it's hard to do, but yeah, they did it.
They successfully accomplished that. So looking forward to who we get on next. It's going to be some fun. Hopefully we're going to have some people reach out and say, sign me up. I am interested. We've got a little wait list, right? We've got 2 or 3 people ready, but plenty more episodes coming that we can add some more. So
I'm just ready to meet your friends, you know?
Yeah. Well, I don't have a lot of them, but the ones I do, pretty cool people.
There it is.
Yeah. So, Tristan, I have a question.
Yep.
Give me your best that hasn't been used yet joke.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go into the library.
Dig back there. Find it.
You know why I can never work at a bank again?
No.
Some guy asked me to check his balance, so I pushed him.
That's pretty good. That's one of those. That's coming to the beach with me next week.
For sure.
Yeah. And I'm going to the beach next week, and it's going to be interesting. You know,
you and all the dads just sitting around beaching, telling jokes.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to be fantastic. The jokes, when they start flowing, people start smiling, and when people start smiling, it's a good time.
Awesome. Well,
have some fun.
Yeah. What are we talking about today? Lead me off.
Tristan, we've talked back and forth quite a bit, and when we sit and talk about challenges that happen, one of the biggest things that I hear and have experienced is around supply chain collaboration.
Yep.
I'll tell you my quick story, and then we'll keep jumping in. But when I was at SwageLock, one of the things that we really struggled with is we would create the purchase order in our business system, and that's sitting there siloed. And so then we would send it via email. You know, we used Outlook at the time. We'd send it to our supplier. And guess what often happened?
What happened?
They wouldn't respond.
What?
And so we're expecting something to come next Tuesday.
Sure.
And Tuesday gets there and it's not there. And so then our manufacturing teams comes over and they're like, hey, where's this part? Oh, well, we got to follow up. And, you know, sure enough, email's just not a good way. So you call them and they say, oh, I'm so sorry. Not a good day.
Yeah.
So what's, I think my internet may be fun, but that's also part of the fun of podcasts. But so one of the challenges that, again, we experienced that I often hear is how do you collaborate with your suppliers to get them the order confirmation in the simplest manner, number one. Number two is how do you make sure that you get that confirmation back so that you've both agreed and you're on the same page that this is actually showing up on that day. And then the third piece, which is equally important, is what happens when there's delays or issues, right? Yeah. So thoughts from you so far, and I'll tell you a little bit about what we did, but also about what I've seen kind of best practice wise to date in the industry. So what are your thoughts?
I mean, at the end of the day, right, a lot of that comes down to, and I've heard the same sentiment from customers out in the field, and it's so interesting to hear that feedback because you'd think it's something like so easy, but at the end of the day, it requires somebody to send an email, somebody to pick up the phone. If you're faxing, you know, if you're still into that, you know, somebody send a fax, and it just, when you leave things to the human, things fall down.
Yeah.
And that's what I hear when you state all of that.
Yeah. And I think, there's two things that happen in business. Really, well, I guess there's technically three, right? People, process, technology. But the
Hmm.
two big ones right now are the people or the process and the technology, right? So, yes, we can put a process around things to fix it,
Sure.
but we have to then have the technology to back that up and to support us.
Yeah.
Um, and I think a lot of times we should challenge ourselves to figure out how do we best use our technology? How do we push it to its limits before we go to another system? And I think that's a key piece of really analyzing your systems, understanding what you want your process to be, and then
Right.
figuring out does the technology support that process? And if not,
Yeah.
start looking at what's next.
Yeah. And there's some mature steps that have to happen there. And it's a lot of, self-reflection of all of that. And then,
Absolutely.
of course, I think Megan mentioned it in the last episode last week around IT spend and kind of
Yes.
justifying that. And like, that's where
Yes.
these business problems and these processes, lead to technology spend. And
Mhm.
a lot of this can be justified.
So when I was managing our supply chain at SwageLock,
Sure.
there's a couple of thoughts just to share, like how do you best do this in a
Hmm.
business system? We were using Outlook, right? And
Hmm.
Outlook is great for like one-on-one email chains, but
Yeah.
it lacks a lot of functionality in terms of either one, collaboration with your internal team, but also like what's the status of things? Have I gotten a response? So we actually use something called Freshdesk, but there's other things called Zendesk. There's one called Gen. It's all customer ticketing platforms. But we
Sure.
used it, not we implemented it for customers, but we also found benefits to using that for our supply chain as well.
Yeah.
So the first thing we did was how do we basically, once we've sent that email, how do we make sure we get a response?
Right.
And Freshdesk or Zendesk or other, again, ticketing tools allow you to keep track of that in kind of a widget format. So that was number one that was really helpful. The second thing that was really helpful, when you look at your system, being able to, again, extend it, we call that extensibility, but using something like a customer defined field or a user defined field so that on the purchase order, you can say, is this confirmed or not?
Yeah.
Um, and what that ultimately allows you to do is to have, again, a widget or some exception monitoring to say, show me all of my unconfirmed purchase orders or sales orders
Correct.
for that matter. Um, and so that's kind of like I would call those basic things that we should be pushing our system to be able to do. And the last
Yeah.
thing, probably best of breed, would be using some type of collaboration tool, whether that is like something like Supplier Exchange. What are some other ones out there that you're aware of?
Source Day is a really
SourceDay.
good one.
Yeah. So those tools take automating, they basically automate the process, right? They pull information from the ERP, the business system. They automate the communication to your suppliers, and they give you one central place to go to manage the whole process.
Yeah. And I think, to peel some of what you said back, just listening, um, you talk about the business system, right? How you guys solved it at SwageLock was more of a point solution. But
Mhm.
I think when you're talking about the business system, you're kind of talking about the ERP functionality and a lot of those things that may be touching that. And it could be a point solution, right?
Yeah.
The ERP should be flexible enough to integrate or have an API call there. But at the end of the day, a lot of this functionality in modern business systems, modern ERP, a lot of this functionality is there, right?
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
as you are, say, looking for a new ERP, you really need to be understanding down to this level of like, okay, what is this going to do to help my supply chain? And
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because there's so many details inside of a business system that are important.
Oh, yeah.
For instance, right? And one of the things we're going to talk about kind of leading into this is lead times. But the dates of your sales orders, the dates
Hmm.
of your purchase orders, all impact MRP.
Yeah.
And so if we're not getting those confirmations or giving the right dates, that
Hmm.
causes chaos in a system. So that goes back to that combination of people, process, technology, right?
Sure.
People have to do the right things. Technology has to support those things, but the process has to be in place to make sure that it all flows in the right manner.
Yeah.
Um,
You
so
mentioned people. It's funny. I hear your little people in the background. I love
the
it.
little people, they're home for summer, and it would be very likely that they come in. There's a high probability.
Yeah,
I
I
don't know
hope they do.
around that. Yeah,
That would make this podcast like actually real. Like we work from home, you
yeah,
know. Our families are a big part of what we do. And I mean, we're just two guys out here talking about
absolutely.
manufacturing and technology. Why not let the little ones in?
Two guys with a good support system behind us.
That's right.
So they're
That's
all
right.
excited because we're going to the beach, and
Oh yeah.
so it's excitement day. And
Lead times. What's your lead time to the beach?
yeah, let's talk lead times. My lead time to the beach is 6 hours, but I don't
Woo!
have a system to really check that. So, however, um, we were just talking about MRP, and
Yeah,
the second big issue that I think I hear and I saw was lead times. It's
sure.
funny because in a business system, and again, prior to COVID, this may not have been a huge deal. But after COVID and the whole bullwhip effect of skyrocketing demand and supply not being able to keep up, then supply catching up and overshooting demand, there's a lot to uncover there. But lead times in the current world of ERPs, many of them are fixed.
Correct.
This item, master data, I put in this lead time. Well, when we plan for manufacturing something and that lead time is 2 weeks, great.
Hmm.
MRP kicks production orders out, sets everything for those dates. And then we send that purchase order to the vendor and they say, guess what? We're actually at a 6 week lead time. Haven't talked to you in a couple of months.
Right.
Oh crap. The sequence of events then is production order is not going to be done on time. Sales then needs to be notified. So how do we fix that lead times in the system? What are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, lead times being fixed is kind of just one of those things where it's like, okay, we have data, right? We have forecasting tools.
Mm.
And lead times, and you're right. When I grew up, early in my career learning about this, like, okay, what's the lead time in the system? And what's the lead time offset,
Yeah.
to give ourselves some buffer between, and it's just like at the end of the day, in a modern system and the modern data sets that are coming in, it doesn't have to be fixed. It can be a little bit
Correct.
more dynamic. And I
Great.
think it is a modernization effort a lot of times to have your proper forecasting tools, to have your proper historical data captured and
Yeah.
analyzed, and then to get predictive outcomes, if you
Yeah.
will, as we talk about the use cases of AI coming in.
Yes.
And um, I think that's how the 2024 to 2020 or 2030
Yeah.
kind of approach will be with lead times.
Yeah. I think in terms of a crawl, walk, run,
Hmm.
right? When we're running, we're using AI. AI is telling us the things that are going to be a problem.
Sure.
And we're not digging through the data. We're not manually doing things. When we take a step back to the crawl, one thing that we did that I think is very helpful is we pulled all of our lead times out and we basically did some analysis. And this again, it's very manual. Put the
Historicals and Excel.
and we would then take all of those and we would send RFQs to the vendors that mattered. And we'd say,
Sure.
hey, give us accurate lead times on this.
Yeah.
We'd pull those in and then we'd run our reorder point. And I'll tell you the beauty of this is many times we caught things that increased. We
Mm.
didn't have enough stock and we were proactive. And I think that word is very important is being proactive to your customers to tell them
Yeah.
this is where we're at. We now have 6 weeks to make a plan to fix that. And it's giving you time versus we need that today and we don't have it.
Yeah,
Uh,
if you get those right data insights, those stockouts will jump off the page at you for
Absolutely.
sure.
So I think it's that crawl is what are those manual things that we can do now to get up again, updated lead times. We have to set reminders for ourselves. It's not perfect. The walk is so we're crawling, now we're walking, maybe we're using RPA, robotic process automation, to do some of that auto, automating some of that manual work. But
Hmm.
then that run is we're using AI. AI is telling us the things because of its ability to learn what could be a problem, and
Yeah,
we're seeing that on a much more proactive level, probably even before the maybe the supplier would know that it could
yeah,
be a problem.
agreed.
So it's a
Very
fun
cool.
time in business, Tristan. I
It is.
you want to talk about waking yourself up? It's exciting. Like
I love hearing challenges that different customers are facing. One that I when it comes to supplier collaboration, right? Today's topic. When it comes to like quality management and communicating defects or nonconformances back upstream, it's interesting, right? Because you get this product through the door, maybe it passes initial inspection, maybe it gets to next tire assembly, and it fails.
mhm.
And when you look at the disposition and everything there of what happened as you go research the quality tag, you find, oh man, this was a supplier part. And
Mhm.
oh man, that whole lot is bad. And we're seeing failures across the board. And so figuring that out, communicating those defects back upstream to encourage a corrective action environment and even if you catch it right there on the dock at your inspection and you need to say stop payment because you don't have good hardware on
Yeah,
that purchase order that you brought in. um, and
I
then the
think
returns process. There's a lot to that.
yeah, and I think you said two things, but the first one's communicating, right?
Hmm.
And I think as again we look at what's the process we want it to be,
Hmm.
and then are we able to achieve that? But from a communication standpoint, like how do you effectively do that without going to Outlook,
Yeah,
sending an email completely broken, right? Because the likelihood that this stuff moves on because it's again in the business system, people aren't seeing those holds. So it's
sure.
taking the process you want to be, matching it up to how do we accomplish that in the business system. And again, that's what I love about what we do is we get to sit there and understand those challenges and figure out how do you do this in modern day technology.
Yeah, and that comes to the solutioning, right? And that's usually the most exciting part. And all roads point towards some sort of, you mentioned earlier, a supplier portal.
Yeah.
Something where it's not necessarily requiring the whatever happens, say the defect happens. We don't
Mhm.
want that to be a trigger for a human to necessarily go have to communicate that.
Correct.
There's ways in modern technology to have that as a push back to the supplier to notify them. And then shoot, you may get a call from the supplier before you're even notified of the problem internally, all
Yeah.
because the system is pushing that over. And that approach of having a portal and adoption of a portal with your supply base is really, really key for more effective supply chain um, operations, really, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I love it. I love the conversations again. There's the three aspects, but it's really in the whole point of this podcast is how do we identify how the technology supports the things we want to happen. Very
Agreed.
fun, Tristan. Love it. I have one question for you to wrap
Hit
us
me.
up. What is the most exciting trip that you have coming
Mm.
up? And it can't be like mine to the beach. Yours has to be much more enjoyable. So what is it?
I I do have a beach portion of this trip,
Oh, yeah.
but my wife and I are going to Munich, Germany for Oktoberfest
Nice.
for a couple days, and then we're
Let me
following
guess.
that up.
Hold
Oh,
on.
go
You're
ahead.
going in September, right?
Late September, yes.
What? You got to go in October. It's Oktoberfest, Tristan.
I
I'm
think we're like September 30th, October
there.
1st. So
Okay, there we go.
best of
Because
both
you got a
worlds.
good deal on the flight then, because it's September, not October. See?
Yeah, and then we're
Well,
hitting three different areas in Italy. So a couple
oh,
spots in Sicily, and then
oh.
one other spot. So it's gonna be a lot of fun.
I went to Italy probably close to 10 years ago. By
Yeah.
far one of the most memorable places. So pretty. Enjoy the grappa.
Mm,
Enjoy it, but not too
mm,
much because I want you to
definitely.
make it,
I'm,
safe.
I'm a responsible human being.
There we go. Well, Tristan, that was fun. I'm looking forward to hearing about that trip come late October when I actually get to hear about it. And yeah, that was a fun
Yeah.
episode.
I'll probably need to drink a lot of H2O that you've been
There we
having
go.
on the show.
There we go. Cheers.
All right, man. Peace.